hands down, so I'm not like Ricky Bobby. Like, I don't know what to do with my hands.
I think it's better. I think it's, keep it real, right? So we don't necessarily have an agenda. It's just, like I said, when we talked that day and I bounced some ideas off you, I wish we had recorded that.
Okay.
And like, I don't want it to be weird.
Okay.
Like it feels weird.
It feels weird because you're recording us. That's what makes it feel weird.
I'm not, though. I forgot to hit record.
Okay.
Would you believe me if I said that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, I don't know. I don't even know what made me think of it. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I know you listen to a lot of podcasts. There are a few out there for the industry, but they focus on other areas. There's a lot of social media forums where questions come up but don't necessarily get answered. Or maybe I feel like a conversation would be a better way to answer some of those questions. Or maybe not even answer, maybe just kind of come up with ideas, what might work, what might not.
Yeah, I think one of the more difficult things about our industry is that it is particularly nuanced in that nothing, I think, is black and white. Every single property manager has dealt with something different. Every resident situation is different. And often we take a broad-based approach to how we handle everything to make sure that it's being handled fairly. But that's where it gets tough, right? Because not everybody is in the same situation. And so I think that's where a lot of those questions come from, and it's much easier to discuss and have an ongoing conversation about it as opposed to trying to say, this is 100% the correct answer, this is how it should be handled every single time.
Yeah, well, the joys of social media, too. Somebody posts the question, and the first 10 responses have nothing to do with answering the question, and, they're mad about the way that you asked the question.
Yeah.
And it kind of misses the point. I feel like some people's questions don't get answered. And so I feel like if we can get the right people in the room, we can answer some good questions.
Absolutely.
And obviously, when I started thinking about this, I came and sat down with you because I know you listen to a lot of podcasts. You've been in the industry, as long, if not longer than me.
It makes me sound nerdier every single time you say it.
Yeah, but it's something like 60 million people listen to podcasts. So, for the part that probably didn't make it into this, we're talking about all the gear and, we talked about how I was in the AV club in high school. So there you go. I am nerdier than you.
I was in the marching band, so I don't know how much.
Okay, yeah, you win.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And theater, if you believe that, and theater. So I had a real cool time.
Yeah, I feel like something like this not only can be useful to the office staff, but to the maintenance staff and even to the suppliers. I've always felt in any job that I do, the better you understand everyone's role, the better you can do your job. So, I guess the goal would be, to answer some of those questions, have some good conversation, but, be entertaining too, because no one wants to sit here and watch me monologue about, something boring and put people to sleep.
No one wants that.
Yeah, and so, I feel like we've had some pretty entertaining conversations that no one else gets to see. So, I don't know, maybe that happens here, maybe it doesn't. Like I said, I think that the goal to provide some of that information or just help answer a question. Maybe we don't get to what the solution is, but we can explore some options. I don't think there's one solution that works for every property or every scenario.
Yeah, well, gosh, that's the one thing about the industry, right? You've got from senior to affordable to conventional that was built 50 years ago to conventional that was built 12 minutes ago that has a butler. So, it's just everything is so different right now, too. Every situation, every property is dealing with such different things, although a lot of it is universal. A lot of the conversations I've had recently are so difficult because they feel like the residents are even just so wound up right now. Everybody is so tight right now, and it's so hard to make sure that you're treating everybody kindly, but also holding the rules and doing what you got to do to keep the property running and keeping it fair and keeping it a comfortable place to live for everybody. But it is, it feels like I think a lot of what I'm hearing from people is just that it's really tough right now to make sure that everybody does feel cared for and that they're able to care for their residents and that they're caring for the staff even that's on site to make sure they feel comfortable. And it's just really complicated right now for everybody.
Yes, I think there's a lot there too, because I think I think anybody you talk to in the industry will all agree that, someone should write a book with all the stories and all the stuff we've seen and been a part of. And I feel like we could tell some of those stories here, that'll be entertaining. But one of the things that I don't want to do and that you brought up, and I think was a great point, is that, we need to make sure that we're not doing anything that's going to harm the industry. So, if you're that property manager that, took someone front door because they didn't pay the rent, I mean, you're the exception, you're not the rule. I think most of what we've seen in the industry is the opposite, is the staff that bends over backwards to help the residents and really cares about the residents. And so I think those are the kind of stories that we want to tell. I think there's plenty of those that are entertaining, without doing something that would potentially harm the industry and, kind of shine that bad light on us.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's always the thing, right? Like the things that go viral are the things that are the crazy things. The people, they want to hear the story. I mean, we love drama, right? That's why people love reality TV. That's why we love watching all this stuff. Like, we love the drama of it. So you want the story of, oh gosh, the property manager took somebody's door, and you want that because that's the drama. That's what we're interested in, and it is. You're right. That's the point tiny percent of the person that chooses the wrong path and in this industry, but that's what gets the biggest light shed on it because that's the thing that moves around. It's what everyone wants to hear.
Yeah, but so I mean, story time, right? I mean, I worked at a luxury property at one point, and we had a resident kick in his own front door because he came home drunk and couldn't find his keys.
That's awesome.
So I mean, like I said, we don't have to tell the story about the property manager that did that nasty thing. There's plenty similar stories that are just as entertaining.
We had the only door kicking I ever had was it was actually the ex-girlfriend. The boy, I think he had cheated, something to that effect. But her stuff was still in the house, and so she came over and kicked it in while he wasn't there, and that was the only kicking I ever had. But
nice.
Yeah.
I mean, look, you got to do what you got to do sometimes.
Yeah, hard to get a door fix though after hours. Like that was the takeaway from that is he came home. It was after most people had gone home. We were closing up the office, and he was like, "Hey, my door's kicked in." I was like, "Yeesh!" Called police.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, and I feel like that's another like cool piece of this. So, I started as a maintenance guy. I was on that side of the industry. I'm on the supplier side now. And, one of the things I loved to do was take those cool products that save time or make life easier, things like that, that new product, and, make sure people know about it. And so what comes to mind for that, I mean, there was what was it? It was like armored door security or something. It was this big metal panel that when a door got kicked in, it just kind of wrapped everything. You secured it. It was, I don't know, probably 3-4 feet long. So it was enough to secure the door so it would latch and lock overnight. You could use them preventatively to make sure the doors were harder to kick in. But I mean, I feel like this is a good form for that kind of thing too.
Yeah. Hard to lease, right? When you're like, oh, this for when your door gets kicked in, this will keep you safe.
But if you use it, your door won't get kicked in. That's an amenity.
Come live here. When your door gets kicked in, inevitably, we'll keep you safe.
Oh my goodness. But yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the important things is we try to make sure that we don't do any harm. The other thing that is important to me is I think there's enough crazy stories out there, and there's enough, conversation around problems and solutions that I really just want the honesty. I don't think there's any reason to, make up a story or, take someone else's story as yours. I mean, if, someone told you a story once, then, I mean, let's tell the story. But, someone told me this story. This happened to somebody else. I think that's fair, and I think I can hear the chords.
Reality is weirder than fiction for sure in this one.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Can you hear when I do this? Like if I take a drink, can you hear it?
Yeah, certainly.
Cool. Does it sound like I'm hitting a bong or something? Because this is like makes a weird noise.
Well, so that's where the camera comes in. So if people thought you were hitting a bong, we'd be able to tell. Yeah. So smile while you do it.
Hitting a bong. So.
And if you like drool a little, they'll see that too.
It's like that same noise though.
Yeah.
Not that I hit bongs that frequently. I just know that that's the noise that it is. But or ever really, it's not even frequently. Is not a word like ever, but. That's a funny thing that just popped in my head that I was like, I wonder if that's what that sounds like.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can hear it, right? So that's one of the things that I think is cool about the headset. So, I mean, I've never done anything like this before. All this gear is, I watched a couple of YouTube videos and, got what I thought it would take to get something like this done. I think it's you rubbing against the stand is what I hear.
Cool.
And so that's the other thing I'm going to have to learn is the editing piece. I think my intent, though, is to put this out kind of unedited as much as we can. Start to finish. Here's really how the conversation went. Here's, really what we talked about. I think that's probably the best way to do it.
Now you have me weird about this. Okay. Yeah, no, I agree. I think your honesty is your best policy. I think you got, if you're going to get people interested, you got to be authentic.
Yeah, well, I think that's the key, right? So my intent is not to make stuff that is going to get people interested or going to be wild and crazy. I think if, we honestly do things that, answer questions and help the industry, that it either takes off or it doesn't. And if it doesn't, then I'll, do what good old Mr. Wonderful says. We'll take it behind the shed and we'll shoot it. I mean,
are you thinking call-in questions? Like people could call in and you could answer questions live, or bring in experts then to answer questions?
Yeah, so maybe, right? So I think that's probably past my expertise at the moment.
Okay.
I think, this video, I'll break up and kind of get out there on the different platforms. And I think hopefully, well, by video, I mean the podcast, mostly the audio, but yeah, definitely the video. But I think, run some comment streams in there. I think just day-to-day life will come across questions that need to be answered. I wonder if they make like a fishbowl almost full of random questions, and you get to a point where you just start drawing questions out. I don't know.
Well, if you had special guests too, you could always put out in advance and say, hey, we're going to have this person has this kind of experience. Do you have a problem that's in that vein? And then people could submit questions in advance, and then you could always address them. Yeah.
Or if we get a question ahead of time, we can get the right person on to be able to answer that question and dive into some other stuff. I think I always refer to the industry as kind of one big inbred family. Like you find somebody that's been in the industry long enough, they've been on both sides, they've kind of been all over. And so although they might be good with answering one question, there's so much more that I think they can offer.
I think you should never, ever refer to it as inbred ever again. I don't think that's a thing.
So vocabulary is not my strong suit. I do the best I can. There probably is a better term for it.
Come join our industry. We're very inbred.
Yeah. That's a great slogan.
PR is just going to take off.
Yeah.
We treat you right. We're inbred.
So I think you should moonlight writing slogans, right? Because so the name of the podcast, the Property Management Makes Me Drink, right? So when we were having this first conversation, we were sitting there, you had a bottle of whiskey on your desk as a present for someone. And we were talking about different podcasts where sometimes they drink on the podcast, sometimes they don't. And we were just kind of bouncing it back, and you're like, Property Management Makes Me Drink. That's the stick. I'm like, yeah, that actually sounds pretty good.
It's important that you point out that the bottle of whiskey was for someone else and not that I was just drinking in my office, because association management also makes you drink, but a little bit different. But yes, important takeaway. I was not just drinking at my office during the day.
Yes. I think I said that. But yes, definitely you were not drinking from that bottle. Now, we don't know what's in the Yeti.
No.
But,
Always keep them guessing.
And I mean, obviously, certainly not encouraging drinking. As I think it's more of just a funny slogan. I think most people can look at it and laugh. If it offends you, I'm sorry. It's funny. So I think I'm going to stick with it. I think it works.
I like it. Our industry are fun people. That you got to be fun. You got to have a sense of humor to deal with what some of the things are that you deal with day to day. So it's got to be fun. You got to have a sense of humor, and you got to find a way to relieve some stress.
Yeah. I mean, I think, at first maybe just like a weekly episode. I think, I could probably record more than one at a time and just kind of let them go once a week or so to just kind of keep it flowing. Not too overwhelming because, I have a job. Everybody we're going to have on has a job.
Yeah, people have jobs.
Yeah. And then we talked about most podcasts have like an intro and an outro and that kind of thing.
You need a theme song.
Yeah, my singing voice is not very good.
I wouldn't suggest you do it. No, I wasn't suggesting you create a theme song. I was suggesting you maybe found somebody talented to create a theme song.
So you don't think I'm talented?
No. Short answer, no.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's gonna be rough at first. Certainly, something like that.
You're gonna be like, property management makes me drink, or you're like, oh, good, this is a successful podcast.
We just recorded that, right? So I can use that.
Please don't.
That will be. Yeah.
Please don't. Yeah. Not if you want it to be successful. Please don't.
Coming to a YouTube page near you, the Lindsay McLean.
No one needs that.
I mean, we do a karaoke night with the association, right?
Mm-hmm. You'll notice I was never a part of it.
But you should.
Yeah, no, I hosted it. I helped them. I coerced them into it, but I wasn't. That's not my jam.
No?
Mm-mm. No, thank you. No, I do think, the amount of things, getting back to kind of what we were talking about earlier, there's a lot, people are under stress, right? The residents are stressed out. The property management people are stressed out. And so, I think this would be a good way to relieve some of that stress, tell those funny stories, be able to share some of the shared experiences, feel like you're part of a group that are also having those exact same shared experiences. Because a lot of times you can feel siloed, right? If you're at a property, you feel like you're the only one that has this crazy resident that is just making you bananas. And then you start hearing, and I think that's why these conferences and the meetings are so fun. You get together, you start sharing those stories, and you go, oh my gosh, mine did this. And you're going, oh my gosh, mine did this too. And I think it feels nice to feel part of a shared experience. And then you don't feel quite as alone. You don't feel quite as, this is an impossible Everest. I'm not ever going to be able to solve this problem. You start to feel like, okay, this is something that other people also are tackling, and we can figure this out, and, we will get through this. And I think this is a great opportunity to have, is that you can have some of those people come in and share some of those shared experiences, and maybe people won't feel so alone. Maybe they'll feel like, okay, I also have a resident that's gone bananas, and here's how somebody else dealt with something very similar. And, that might help people feel, okay, we can do this, we can get through this, especially considering how quickly this hellscape is changing.
Oh, God, the last couple of years, it's everything. Not just the industry, but everything is so different. But I look back to, when I started as a groundskeeper, and, the association was where, I got to make those contacts and meet people and, build those relationships and share those stories. And, that certainly still happens today, but, now with podcasts, more and more people listen to those like Lindsay. And so, I don't know. I think it's a good form. I think, I'm curious how many people in the industry would listen to something industry related, and how many listen to just ridiculous stuff that has nothing to do with it. So I guess we're going to find out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This is one way to test that theory.
What do they say? Never test the depth of the water with both feet, right? Here we go. Jumping in.
I've never heard that.
Yeah.
Is that a thing people say, or is that literally a thing you just said?
No, that's a thing I heard at some point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not sure that's accurate.
Again, I wish I could make that up, but I'm not. That's not my thing. I can't. I'm not that smart.
I frequently say things. This is like, here you go. I frequently say things and then just be like, that's a thing people say. Because I've realized I've said something very stupid. And I'm like, no, it's like a thing people say.
I guess if you've said it, then people have said it, right?
People have said.
Person is the thing person says.
Very frequently, I'll be like, yeah, no, that's a thing people say. Gosh, I was unaware of the level of hydration required for this.
Yeah, well, and the lights aren't even like the hot lights. Mm-hmm. It's just it's the nature of your office. It's hot.
I'm used to the arid desert climate of my office, and I feel that you have to continuously hydrate to survive in there.
So I kind of peeked through and came up with a couple of random questions that are out there, just thinking we could dive into it. There's really just one that I wanted to pull up that I feel like is relevant, and maybe we can have some conversation around it that matters, and I don't know, we'll see. But I know one of the challenges. So for those of you that don't know, we're based in Florida. We're in Jacksonville, Florida.
You didn't actually introduce yourself or me, so maybe that's a thing you might want to think about.
Yeah, I don't know.
Podcasting.
So I did think about it, right? And, obviously, I think we both have interesting backgrounds, but I don't think at least for me, this isn't about me now.
Well, people want to know who they're listening to, though.
Yeah. I feel like, if we run through kind of, where I came from and all that, that's where everybody's let me skip to something else. This is the boring part.
They don't need to know your social security number.
Yeah. I feel like at least for me, that's something we can get into over time. I think as we go through the guests, we'll talk a little bit about background. I think little bits of me will come out as we move through.
Fair.
Yeah.
So you just want them to jump off later. Okay.
Yeah, well, if we give them a little bit now, it gets boring, but then we get back to something else, and so it's not. Yeah, because I'm not that interesting.
You're really selling yourself as a podcast host.
Yeah, honesty, right? We talked about honesty,
authenticity.
There's the honesty, but yeah. So definitely in Florida, but I think it's a national issue in the industry. Seeing a lot of questions about it online. Is hiring, especially maintenance staff right now. Properties are having a very tough time not just finding qualified candidates, getting people to show up to the interview. You schedule 20 appointments and 2 people show up. You've seen tweaks to benefits packages and things like that. But I mean, any advice for people trying to hire and fill those maintenance specific positions right now?
Gosh, well, I mean, they're calling it the Great Resignation. That's what this is being called.
I haven't heard that.
Really? Oh yeah, no, this is a whole thing. Everybody is leaving jobs. I think what we're seeing right now is a lot of the people who have been threatening to retire, who have been at the top, have finally retired. So you're seeing a lot of movement in people moving up in positions. New, better jobs are becoming available. And so people are going, oh gosh, I've been doing this now for X amount of years and I'm super qualified. And now this position is available that I'm very qualified for. And so you're seeing a lot of people moving upward. And what that has done has left a lot of the kind of entry-level, mid-level positions now available. And so it's a matter of attempting to, I don't know, you're set up here, man.
Go. Keep going.
Okay. All right. That's not better.
Yeah, that's not. I did a 3 off too.
Fine, sorry. You did. It's fine. So you're looking at a lot of the mid-level, entry-level positions, which are now needing to be filled. And our industry is particular with that because those mid-level, entry-level positions do require skill. You're a groundskeeper, maybe not, but your maintenance tech, your maintenance supervisor, that requires a level of certification and skill. And those are still sort of considered mid-level, entry-level positions. So you've got people, maybe maintenance supervisors who've been around for 20 years who now all of a sudden can move into some other positions and make more money. And you're now trying to fill that spot, which requires skill and experience and knowledge and management and, all of those things. And you're trying to find somebody now to fill that position. I think also too, you're looking at wages. Obviously, in our state specifically, we're moving toward $15 an hour. All of that is now looking at people are expecting to be paid more, better benefits packages, better time off. Our industry is really tough too because a lot of what we do is physical. Specifically on the maintenance side, you're outside in the heat and in the rain, and that's tough. That's hard to do that all day. It's humid. You're doing technical work that sometimes is uncomfortable or in weird crevices. You're like leaning behind buildings and doing all those things. And yes, you do get to roll around on a super cool golf cart. Sometimes, maybe. Yeah, maybe. Most of the time. That is a perk, which, but you're looking for somebody who's willing to take that on and to have the knowledge to take it on and do it successfully and to do it for what your company can afford to pay. I mean, and that really is a bullseye. You're trying to find a very specific thing there. So it is, we're reaching a point now where we're trying to find somebody who's trained and willing to be in that position and that can do it for what, because each property obviously and management company can afford to pay a little bit differently. But I do think one of the things we will see come out of this is you're going to see not like a conglomeration, but I think more interest in what other people are paying. I think there's going to be more interest in like salary surveys. What is this sized company who has X amount of properties paying a maintenance supervisor now? What are you paying your maintenance tech? What are you paying your groundskeeper? I also think you're going to start seeing more interest in professional development because how do you keep your person? How do you keep that employee once you do get them in the position and once they are doing a great job? How do you keep them happy? What do you do? What kind of flexibility can you offer? Can you offer them professional growth? Can you give them a path to, a better job and a higher, position? I think that's also a big challenge is that if you're say you're a mid-sized management company, you may only have one regional manager position, one regional maintenance position. And you may have incredibly talented people who have been there year after year after year, and you don't even have a slot to move them up into. I've seen people creating positions where they can give better titles and do those things because that person deserves it. They deserve the upward mobility, but the path just may not exist with that smaller company. So you're seeing them sometimes leave to go to different, jobs. Although I will tell you, sometimes you see them leave for the job title, and then sometimes they come right back because
the grass isn't always greener.
The grass is not always greener.
I mean, I also, it's not like we built a whole bunch of units overnight, no. Right? So there isn't suddenly more maintenance jobs that are trying to be filled. I get that some people have left, some people have moved up. You kind of see that shift. I wonder if, what we're seeing is a pipeline issue. Like, there isn't necessarily an easy path into the industry in most places. I wonder if that's something we see come out of this is more of a focus on developing. I know that some places have programs where they'll grab people straight out of high school, almost like a technical college, and kind of train them in the ways.
Well, and think about how awesome we are as an industry, right? And what other job can you think of that you can go and work for? You can start as an entry-level position and get cheaper housing. Like most places give you a percentage off your rent, something like that. Like that's such a benefit. And I don't think our people even understand that. Like if you really can, maybe somebody's path isn't college, maybe that's not for them, but maybe they do have a lot of technical knowledge. Maybe maintenance is interesting to them or sales, and they can come straight into our industry and we'll give you, 15, 20% off your rent, depending on the property. Like that's huge.
I see that shifting back too, because when I first came in the industry, the free apartment was common. Maintenance supervisor, property manager, you got a free apartment. And then they kind of went away from that. And it was a discount, 20%, 40%, but a higher wage. And what we're starting to see now is that free apartments coming back at that higher wage. So, I mean, that is a good point. I think that is something we'll start to see. I wonder, what else people will add to try to attract better talent into the industry.
I think people, a lot of times change is uncomfortable, right? We don't like it. We want to keep, our brains want to always run efficiently. We want to continue to do what we're doing because that feels comfortable and safe, and our brain doesn't have to expand. We don't have to think outside of that position. So we can stay on our railroad tracks and keep going, and our bodies and our minds feel comfortable there. You step outside of that, you start feeling stress, right? Now you have to think of things. You have to think differently. You have to problem solve, and that's become stress on our bodies. So we don't like change as human beings. It's not comfortable to us. But a lot of times when that moment happens, when you get to that position where you have to change, that's where a lot of the great strides forward happen. We start going, okay, what can we do? What can we do to be more creative here? What can we do to keep our people happy? I have seen, and this is just, anecdotally, I have seen a giant shift in and this is specifically for the office side, in the apparel that people are allowed to wear to work, right? When I first started as a leasing agent in the industry, we had to wear the most god-awful Land's End, like it was the required thing. You bought it through the company, like they picked it out, you wore it. It was hideous on everybody. So the only thing that made us all equal is that we all looked terrible in this like professional wear. There was also even one of the things was like it still required pantyhose. I mean, this is insane in the state of Florida in the middle of July. So I've seen a shift in, and that didn't make me happy as an employee, right? Sure. I didn't love that about my job. And I think as you see the shift of people being able to wear their own clothes or, relaxing the dress code, you don't have to wear business jackets anymore. You could wear polos. You can wear, on some properties, they let you wear jeans and shorts. I think those kind of things, which we sometimes were so rigid in our thinking about, can sometimes shift, and all of a sudden, wow, now that employee actually has a lot more enjoyment in their job. They're way less likely to leave because they like what they can wear jeans on Friday at your property, and maybe this other company can pay $1 more an hour, but you have to wear pantyhose and hideous outfits every day. I mean, I think some of those things that aren't necessarily monetary value can make a lot of stride when you're talking about employee engagement and employee happiness. Even team building. I can tell you when I worked on properties where you had a good team in place and you all liked each other and you liked coming to work and people had a good working, environment and relationship. And yeah, you're yelling at the maintenance guy every once in a while because they never went over and fixed, 204's leaky sink, and they're yelling back at you because you maybe didn't put the work order in. I don't know, maybe that happened. But that's, if you have that good relationship with your team, you're way less likely to leave because, again, the grass isn't always greener on the other side, and you know that. You get there and go, oh gosh, now I'm working with this totally, militant person that has no sense of humor. You've got no fun in your office. Maybe they make you listen to smooth jazz all day. I don't know. Maybe that happened to me. You don't know. And so it is hard to really gauge the things that make somebody stay and make somebody feel engaged and enjoy their job and their work. But it is, I think right now what we are seeing is that there's just a lot of financial things that are changing. People are able to pay so much more at certain things. And so people are going, oh gosh, I can go do that. And so it's just, we're going to have to see how that all shakes out. But I think a big thing right now too is just making people feel seen, making the employees feel seen, and that their contributions and their work is worthy, and that they are appreciated. Doing, like I said, this is a hard job, especially on the maintenance side, and those guys are out there in the heat and the rain and the dirt, and there's spiders, I don't know, lots of things.
Dirt and spiders,
which is basically the worst. And so, just making sure that those people feel appreciated for what they're doing, because I would say of all the positions on a property, maintenance, they're working really hard, and I don't know that they get a lot of the appreciation sometimes. I know that's one of the things we've always talked about is how we as the association can do to make sure the maintenance guys feel appreciated.
Well, sure, yeah. You see a lot of associations do appreciation events. You see a lot of management companies do appreciation events, and I think that's a whole different conversation. Is kind of what do those look like? What are the good ones? What are the bad ones?
Well, here you left, right? You were a groundskeeper. What made you leave? What made you leave being on site? What was the thought process that you went, okay, I'm going to leave being on site, being a maintenance person, and go try to sell some tools?
So those are two different conversations, right? So the first time I changed properties, I was a groundskeeper making next to nothing for money. We had an open tech position at the property. A lot of things had happened with maintenance mania. And just on site,
you were getting famous.
where I'd been able to demonstrate that I could actually fix some of these things, and yet I was overlooked for the position. I was offered, our property manager left and went to another property, and offered me a job for $7 more an hour, and my property countered with $1. So I'm like, look, at this point, it's best for me to make, had it been, a difference of 50 cents, quality of life comes in. I think that that work-life balance is a factor. Your happiness with your team, that's a factor. But at some point, there's so much money on the table that you'd be silly not to take it. And that's kind of what, when I left that first time, that's what it was for me. It was significant, and there was really nothing else there. So I think, like you talked about, the pay changing, you're going to see a lot of those surveys. I think one of the best ways to avoid having to hire is to keep your people. So I think you're right. I think you're going to see people trying to get a feel for what the industry's paying and doing some salary adjustments to prevent their people from looking. I think there's some interesting benefits coming out there now too. I just had the Florida Apartment Association, the FAA education conference. One of the classes I sat in on was a maintenance-based class, and that's one of the things they talked about was some of the crazy benefits where there's management companies out there that give an on-call bonus. So even if you don't get called out, if you're on call, you get $50 or $200 or whatever it is. I think that's one of the hardest things about being on maintenance is that on-call rotation. I was always on a two-man property, so every other week you were guaranteed to have either Thanksgiving or Christmas. And being on call isn't the big deal. It's just knowing that you might get called out. Like that first time that I was in a movie while I was on call and my phone rang and it was an air conditioner in Florida, you got to leave the movie. Well, now when you're on call, you just don't leave the house. And for me, at the point where we had our first child, my wife was working weekends kind of off and on, and I'm home alone with a baby, and there's an air conditioner out in the hood. Do I bring my baby? It's just real weird. So that's what got me looking to get off of the maintenance side. But
did you bring the baby?
Oh yeah, I got to do the job, right? You set the car seat carrier on top of one air conditioner, work at the other. It's fine. It's okay. But it's just, there are properties that have sourced out the on-call. So I think some of those interesting benefits, the free apartment making its way back. There's talk about moving to a 4-day work week at some properties.
I love this conversation.
Properties, not at the association.
I think, this is circled around, right? People have talked about this for a long time. I just think it's worth discussing. I do think, I think part of the stress that we feel as people, and we just take on all of these things, and I think are almost addicted to being busy. I know this has been a really stressful couple weeks for me. We've had a lot of stuff going on with the association. We've got, now I'm hiring, and that a lot of that is stressful, right? And I am doing a ton of work right now. But then you do try to figure out, when can you disconnect from that? I need to be able to take a moment where I can leave and unplug from that, because otherwise I'm not able to do, and I think that speaks back to the on-call thing, right? Like, when you're on call, that's always there in the back of your mind. You're never able to just completely unplug and relax and be with your family and be with your home, because you're constantly going, there's this thing happening, And I think we're beginning to talk more about mental health, I think, in this country. And I think that will be one of those things that will come out of this, is how does mental health relate back to job, satisfaction? And do you have a point where you can unplug and go, okay, I'm done with this? Every property manager I know has been called in for something after hours. Maintenance gets called in for something after hours. It is a tough job for that. I mean, it really is. Our industry asks a lot of our people. And it's just, I think, just a testament to the people who go into this. They go into this because they want to help people have homes, and they are willing to do those things. But it's hard. It's hard on an individual.
Yeah, some of my most frustrating maintenance calls come at 5:30, 6 o'clock. It's the resident gets home. It's, hey, I woke up this morning and my milk was a little warm in the fridge, but I thought it'd get better. Come home at 5 o'clock and the whole fridge is defrosted. So now maintenance leaves at 5. They're gone. You just got home at 6 and your phone rings. Hey, my fridge is out. Hasn't worked all day. Just figured I'd call it in now. Or the same with the air conditioner. So, you got to wonder how a 10-hour day, 4 10-hour days, you've got that 4-day work week, but now you've got a maintenance guy that's there when people are coming home. Maybe that helps with that on-call piece. Because, that 2 a.m. call is rare at most properties. Now, there are some older properties that, probably didn't have the best staff before, weren't maintained the way they should have been. And so there's definitely those properties that no matter what you do, when you're on call, you might as well sleep on site. But I think a lot of them, there's a certain window where a lot of those calls come in. And so, maybe a 4-day work week, and obviously different people work different days. They don't all work, Monday through Thursday. But I don't know. That's one of the interesting things that we're seeing coming out of this. And who knows what else?
I think it's hard. Change is hard, but we are, I think, going to see a lot of really exciting things come from this, and I hope to see that be better for our people. What a nice benefit. Maybe you sleep on site. We put a little cot. Just really thinking outside the box.
A cot, yeah, that's
like a nice little cot in the middle of the leasing office. Let them sleep in the model.
That's it. Sleep in the model. Change the sheets. It's fine. Some properties have corporate suites though, where and I know that's a brand. That's not where I'm going with that. I was at one management company where we had a unit on site, and every property had at least one unit. So if you wanted to go to Disney, there was an apartment complex in Orlando that had one of those units. You could rent it for like $50 a night.
Yeah. We had that too. It was awesome because you could go anywhere you wanted, and like if you were in the company, you could call that property. If it was open, you could go stay in that one for no money. And it was just like it was an apartment. This was like pre-VBRO. This was like the way to do that, pre-Airbnb,
So mind blown, right? So that class that I sat in on at FAA, they talked about how some companies have almost like a timeshare or one of those VBRO, like a house somewhere, and they couple that with kind of mandatory vacation. You have to take your time, and if you want, you can have this either free or super cheap. As another added benefit.
I do think that's, the attitude toward vacation too is one of those tough ones that we give people vacation time, but then we're like, oh, we're actually so busy you can't ever take it. And I think that's also a tough thing, especially when you're talking about maintenance guys. They may have vacation, but like finding the time that you can actually take vacation where you're not going to come, especially if you're a small property, right? If you're the maintenance supervisor, finding that 1 week, it's going to be hard to take it any time in the summer because ACs, it's you got to find that one time, and like that's hard for an employee, like that's hard for an individual when they feel like they can't even take the vacation time that they have. So I hope that's also one of those things that as we're thinking about like what keeps employees at our properties and in our companies, like what are the things that really matter to people, and how do you want to be treated?
Yeah. I think there's a whole conversation to be had about leadership. I think we talked about having that positive environment, that kind of team feel at a property. I think a lot of that, when you have that, comes to, you just got a real positive leader in the property manager and the maintenance supervisor that, they've created that environment on purpose. Sometimes it happens by accident, but I think rarely. And I think a lot of times you've got a real toxic environment because you've got someone who just spent a certain amount of time in one position, and then because they've been there for a long time, they got moved into the next position. And, after a few cycles of that, you've got the wrong people in those roles. So
Yeah. The ones who've been there forever, and it's sort of like a rock so stuck down in the mud you can't get it to move, and how dare they think of any new way to do anything? That gets tough.
Yeah. I think that was kind of the one thing I wanted to dive into a little bit. I know there's a lot of kind of brainstorming going on out there about how to attract these people. I think there's definitely a pipeline issue.
We've had discussions, on our association side and on the board level, and what can we do to reach out more and to make our industry more visible, because I think a lot of times our industry doesn't get paid much attention to until it's something negative, right? Like, it's not until it's a shooting in an apartment community, or something happens, all of a sudden it's splashed all over the news, and it's this apartment was doing this and this. And I think a lot of times people don't, because again, we like the drama of stuff. We don't want to hear about the day-to-day where, like, Joe in 203 was taken really nice care of. Maybe he had a sink that leaked and we got over there timely, we fixed it. Joe didn't have to call a plumber. Joe didn't have to pay to get somebody out there to fix it. He just called his office. They went in, fixed it, left a little note, Joe, we fixed your sink, and moved on. Like, that's not newsworthy and noteworthy. So I think a lot of the times the good stuff of our industry is passed by. But I think the people who come into this industry are interested and stay in it because we like the residents. We like housing people. We want to have those relationships with those people. And even though this is a hard job and it's a hard industry, our people come into it because they have the heart to want to continue to help make sure people are happy in their homes. I used to, when I was on site, I used to tell people all the time, I can't prevent bad things from happening. I cannot prevent Molly upstairs is going to flood the bathtub and it's going to flood into your apartment. Like, I cannot prevent that from happening.
If you had the thing on the door, it wouldn't get kicked in.
I'm going to put this thing on your door. So when you break up with your boyfriend and he kicks in your door, it won't work. It's like, you're fine.
And he can keep all your stuff.
Yeah. I just said, I can't prevent the bad things from happening, but all I can do is promise you that we will do everything we can do to fix it. And that's the thing, right? I can't keep your AC from going out. It was a property built in the 70s. So yeah, your AC might go out, and you know what? We'll get somebody over there and we'll fix it as quickly as we can. So, but it is hard. And again, going back to kind of what we talked about at the beginning, people are so like tense right now, and I know the same feeling. You have everything lined up. You are working so hard to make sure absolutely every I is dotted and every T is crossed, and you're doing absolutely everything you can, and you're trying to do this, and then one person cuts you off in traffic and you just have lost your mind, and a lot of times I think the stress of that is heightened in your own home. So you have all day, you've busted it, you're doing everything you can. COVID has made your job so much harder. Everything is crazy. You get home and your fridge is out, and now you have lost your damn mind. Like, that's the thing that broke the camel's back. And so you're immediately going to turn that on your management company. You're going to turn that on your property and go, my refrigerator went out, fix it now, and it's hard to listen to reason and be like, hey, so sorry, we don't have another one right now. Like, we got to get one for you, or like, we got to get this part. And so a lot of times then the logic of trying to solve that problem gets lost in the stress of that person, because that's their home. Like, that's their thing. And,
well, sure.
and
I think there's an easy solution to that, because it seems like no one's fridge ever breaks when it's empty. It's always the day after you go grocery shopping. So I just stop grocery shopping, and my fridge doesn't break.
There you go. Yeah. Just eat out constantly.
It always seems that way. My fridge isn't working. I just went grocery shopping. I got $500 worth of meat.
Oh my God, how much meat do you eat?
Not me. That's
$500 worth of meat.
Yeah, it's
although that's like one piece of chicken right now.
Yeah.
Man. just the one breast. Just the one chicken breast, please.
Yeah, but I don't know that this study has been redone, but I know that when I started in maintenance, that the number one reason that people renewed or non-renewed was maintenance. So, I mean, there's a lot to be said about, how you handle that, knowing that resident, there could be 100 other things that went wrong, but, then the fridge broke and now they're blowing up on you. How you handle that, how you respond to that. I mean, it's cheaper to keep them. So
absolutely. I mean, I've heard that before. Well, the leasing office is what brings them in, right? They're the one that rents the apartment. Maintenance is what keeps them there. What's interesting though is, kind of talking to keeping your employees, we've always operated under that, right? It's always cheaper to keep somebody in their home. Yeah. It's way cheaper to keep a resident. We don't want to evict them. We don't want to have to have them move out to find somewhere else to live. Like, we want to keep them there because that's cheaper for us and they're paying rent. So we just maybe need to look at applying that same philosophy to our people, right? Like, it may have an investment. You may have to pay a little bit more here or there, or figure out a different benefit that's attractive to somebody, but it's cheaper to keep that person than it is to try to find a new maintenance supervisor who wants to crawl around in the dirt and the spiders.
Yeah. So, I know this is the first podcast that we're going to put out, but I'd like to see people kind of put in the comments, what are the crazy things or the innovative things that you're doing to attract employees, not just maintenance, but both sides, or what are you doing to keep them? New benefits, new thoughts, those sorts of things.
Yeah, being innovative. I think those are the people that are going to win the race, right? If you're willing to think outside the box, if you're willing to, I hate that phrase though. I hate that phrase. But if you're willing to think and do something new and different, and how has that worked? Because obviously somebody failed too, right? Like, let's be honest. Somebody was like, we'll let you wear green on Thursdays. And everyone was like, we hate green and we're leaving your property.
Yeah. Why do you hate that phrase so much?
I hate that phrase.
What's a better phrase?
Oh, I don't know. But
what do people say?
Sometimes people say, I've heard that people say other things. No, I don't know. It's because it's said a million times. It's corporate speak. It's like synergy and any of those words that get tossed around a million times. And then you're just like, oh, it loses all meaning.
Yeah, I'm going to have to Google that now and see where it came from, because now I'm curious. It's one of those things.
I assume they put somebody in a box. I assume they just put someone in a box and then they're like, figure your way out of it. And that person was like, oh, shit. I had to think outside of the box to escape.
I really hope not.
No, I assume it relates to kidnapping 100%. Yeah, it's absolutely related to kidnapping. Don't Google. That's how it is. That's the answer.
Yeah, but so I think this is your inner murder podcast coming out, and that's not what this is. That's not what we're going for here.
Oh, you did specify I listen to a lot of podcasts. You did not specify that most of them are true crime.
Yeah. So I think that, I don't know. I'm curious now. I want to know where that outside the box comes from.
Obviously kidnapping. I just don't understand why you have to confirm the things I'm telling you.
I don't know the last time I saw a news story about someone being found in a box. Or being held in a box.
Okay, I'm going to really restrain myself right now, because I do have a true crime story that I could tell you about where they kept a lady in a box, but I'm going to keep that one to myself.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, I will try to remain on your good side.
Mm-hmm. It's always a good call.
Yeah. And look, with that, you're obviously... First guest. I think I'd certainly like to have you back on to talk more about associations and those sorts of things.
We didn't even really talk about that.
No, we didn't get into that at all. My intent with this was really just kind of talk about the thoughts for what this podcast could be. I'm going to share this out everywhere we can, break up little videos, kind of get it out and see what kind of traction it gets. Any topics that anybody wants to discuss.
I've been looking at the camera this whole time.
Suggestions. Yeah, I don't know. Just wave now and that covers it. Yeah.
That makes it so much less awkward.
I don't look personally. There's a lot of podcasts I listen to that have video, and I don't watch the video. I just listen to the audio. So do the video. We'll put it on YouTube. I'll put the links at the end of this, but we've got a YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook.
You got to put it in the show notes. That's what they say. It's in the show notes.
Oh, I'll put it where it goes. I'm still learning. All right. Any final words, final thoughts?
No. I think everyone's trying to do their best right now, and I'm always amazed at the levels that our people are willing to go to do the right thing. So I think that's just it. We're lucky to be in a good industry with a lot of good people.
All right. Well, cool. Well, thank you, and I'll figure out how to turn all this stuff off.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure. Thank you so much.